the woman who fell for her worst enemy. Malia had never liked rain, not the kind that fell in relentless sheets, drumming against the window like the sky itself was trying to punish her. Yet here she was, perched on the edge of her worn wooden chair, staring out at the gray cityscape, listening to the liquid rhythm that seemed to echo her own heartbeat. Her small apartment smelled faintly of coffee, old laundry, and the faint tang of despair. Bills stacked on the counter like silent judges, each one a verdict she couldn't escape. She pressed her palms to her face and exhaled, long and shaky. How had she gotten here? Across the room, her younger sister, Lily, slept on the couch. She had draped a thin blanket over her small frame, oblivious to the storm outside and the storm brewing in their lives. Malia's heart clenched. "I'll fix this," she whispered. The words felt empty even as she spoke them. She didn't know how. Her phone buzzed sharply, cutting through the tension like a knife. Unknown number. Malia hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. She almost let it go to voicemail, almost kept the chaos at bay a little longer. But curiosity, maybe even desperation, won. "Hello." Her voice sounded fragile, fragile even to her own ears. A deep, smooth voice answered. "Miss Malia." Her spine straightened. There was something in the way he said her name, something that made the hairs on her arms stand on end. "Who is this?" she asked cautiously. "Someone who can help you," the voice replied. Calm, unshakable. Her pulse quickened. "Help me how?" "I know about your situation. The debts, the eviction notice, your sister, everything. I can fix it." Her hand went to her chest. "How do you know?" "I know enough," he said simply. There was no threat in his voice, only certainty. "Who are you?" she demanded. "Why me?" "Because you're exactly what I need," he said. Her fingers tightened on the edge of the table. Something about this voice made her want to hang up, but another, darker part of her wanted to hear more. "What happens if I refuse?" "You won't," he said. Her heart skipped a beat. "I need time," she whispered finally, her voice trembling. "Take it. But not too much." Then the line went dead. Malia stared at her reflection in the black screen of her phone. She felt like a stranger to herself. "Marry me," she whispered. She had no idea what she was agreeing to, but the thought of walking away now seemed impossible. 2 days later, Malia found herself standing before the tallest building she had ever seen. Its glass facade reflected the storm clouds, lightning streaking the sky like a jagged warning. She was terrified. She knew that walking into this building was walking into someone else's world, a world she might never leave. Her reflection shimmered in the revolving doors. "You can still walk away," she muttered. But her feet betrayed her. They carried her forward into the unknown. Inside, Daniel Hayes waited. He was exactly as she had imagined, tall, impeccably dressed, radiating control. Every movement was precise, calculated, effortless. When he saw her, a faint smile tugged at his lips. "You came," he said, his voice smooth, almost teasing. "I almost didn't think you would." Malia's chest tightened. She wanted to ask him who he was, why he knew everything about her life, but the words wouldn't form. Instead, she followed him silently, letting him lead. The penthouse he brought her into was unreal. Floor-to-ceiling glass offered a panoramic view of the city, its lights twinkling despite the storm. Soft lighting bathed the room, highlighting sleek furniture and luxurious details that made her small, cluttered apartment feel like a memory from another life. "You'll live here," Daniel said, as if stating an indisputable fact. Malia blinked. "You're serious?" "I always am," he replied. Her eyes roamed the space. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a fortress built for someone far more dangerous than she could imagine. "This doesn't make sense," she whispered. "It doesn't have to," he said, casually, as if the universe itself conspired in his favor. "Why me?" she asked again. He paused, studying her as if weighing his words. "You're strong. You don't break easily," he said finally. Her breath hitched. "And you think that's enough to marry someone?" "No. I think it's enough to survive me," he said. Her lips parted slightly. She didn't know if she should laugh or scream. This is insane. Yes, he said. And dangerous. Yes, he said again. And yet you still offer it? Yes, he said. Her chest tightened. And if I say yes? Then everything changes, he said, the weight of his gaze pinning her to the spot. Malia felt a shiver run down her spine. She knew in that moment that her life would never be the same. Okay, she whispered softly. I'll do it. The first days in the penthouse were disorienting. Every room was vast and perfectly designed, yet sterile in a way that made Malia feel like an intruder in a world she didn't belong to. She tiptoed through marble floors, aware of every sound she made, aware of his eyes that seemed to follow her without moving. Daniel was patient but demanding. Not cruel, but exacting. Every decision she made, he noticed. Every hesitation was catalogued, analyzed, tested. And yet, despite the control, there was something magnetic about him, something impossible to resist. You're uncomfortable, he said one morning as she lingered in the kitchen, staring at the stove. I think anyone would be, she admitted. You're not anyone, he said. The words made her stomach twist. You don't even know me, she said softly. I know enough, he replied. You keep saying that. What does it mean? It means I don't need to know everything to know what matters, he said, his gaze steady. And what matters? You, he said simply. Her heart skipped a beat. She looked down, afraid to meet his eyes. This is insane, she muttered. Yes, he said, and you. I don't think I've ever met anyone like you. That's the point, he said. Days blurred into weeks. Malia discovered that Daniel's world was a delicate balance of power, control, and danger. Every gesture, every word, every glance had weight. Yet amidst the intensity, a strange intimacy grew. They bickered, teased, argued, and occasionally, just occasionally, their hands brushed. Sparks ignited that neither wanted to acknowledge. One evening, the city's lights twinkling like fallen stars beneath them, Malia stood on the balcony. The wind whipped around her, cold and sharp. You like coming up here, he said, stepping beside her. I like thinking, she replied. About leaving? About everything, she said. He nodded slowly. That's expected. She looked at him. You're calm about all this. I planned it, he said. You planned me? Her fingers tightened on the railing. I prepared for you, he said. That's not better, she said softly. It's honest, he replied. Her breath caught. Do you hear yourself? Yes. And you don't hate me for it. No, I don't, she admitted. Daniel's gaze softened. No, you don't. Her heart raced. And that's the problem, she whispered. He stepped closer. You're not afraid of me, he said. I am, she admitted. No, you're afraid of what you feel. You're wrong, she whispered. Am I? His eyes locked with hers, and the city fell away. Only the moment remained. She should have stepped back. She should have stopped. But she didn't. Malia's first night in the penthouse had been sleepless. She lay awake, staring at the faint city lights through the massive windows, tracing the paths of cars below like she was watching tiny, distant lives she could never reach. The luxury around her felt surreal, so much space, so much quiet, yet none of it felt like home. By morning, the reality hit harder than the stormy night before. The apartment didn't run itself. Daniel's expectations weren't cruel, but precise. Every movement mattered, every word weighed. The first time she attempted to make coffee, she burned it. When she spilled water near the sleek marble counter, he simply looked at her, expression unreadable, and said, Attention, Malia. It's a simple task, but you did not execute it correctly. Try again. Her cheeks burned, but she obeyed. She was painfully aware of his gaze, and the silent pressure of being constantly observed pressed down on her like a physical weight. Why do you watch everything I do? She finally asked, her voice trembling. He paused, leaning against the counter, eyes scanning her as if cataloging her soul. Because you are not used to being seen, he said softly. And you need to be. What does that even mean? You hide behind exhaustion, behind struggle, behind chaos. I see you, Malia. Everything you hide from the world, I see. Her breath caught. There was something both terrifying and intoxicating in the way he spoke, as though his words were not just statements, but truths carved into the air. Days turned into weeks, and Malia began learning the rhythm of his world. She had grown up scraping by, surviving each day with sheer will, but Daniel's universe demanded more. Precision, control, and awareness. Every meeting she sat in, every conversation she witnessed, every subtle glance she exchanged with him held weight. It was maddening, and yet, she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward him. The first time she realized it, she was sitting in the expansive living room, watching him sign documents with flawless concentration. His posture, his quiet authority, the way he moved through the room, it struck her. She tried to push the feeling away, telling herself it was fear or awe, but it was something deeper. "You're thinking," he said suddenly, his voice cutting through her thoughts. What? You're thinking about me, not about the task at hand." Malia's heart raced. "I wasn't," she lied, flushing. "Yes, you were," he said calmly, leaning against the wall. "And you're lying to yourself." She swallowed hard, the words catching in her throat. "How can you know that?" "Because you feel it," he said. "And you can't hide from yourself." The tension between them grew. It was subtle at first, like an electric current under the surface. A brush of her hand on his arm, a shared glance that lingered too long, the faintest tilt of his head as he watched her move. Each moment was charged, and Malia found herself anticipating the next, dreading it at the same time. One evening, he asked her to accompany him to a charity gala, a world she had never known. Expensive dresses, flashing cameras, people who spoke in polished tones she could barely follow. She felt out of place, every step foreign, every word a potential mistake. "You look," he began, then paused, eyes scanning her in a way that made her pulse quicken. "You look unlike anyone else here." Malia swallowed. "I feel like I don't belong." "You belong," he said simply. "Here, with me, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks." The way he said it made her stomach flip. She wanted to argue, wanted to protest, but she couldn't. And in that moment, she understood that part of her wanted to stay, to see where this world and him could take her. During the gala, Malia overheard whispers. People talked about Daniel Hayes, the powerful, elusive man who rarely let anyone close. They speculated, gossiped, assumed things about the woman who had suddenly appeared by his side. She felt their eyes on her, their judgment, and a strange defiance rose within her. She was no one's illusion. She was real, and she belonged here because she chose to be, not because of him. When they returned to the penthouse, Malia collapsed on the couch, exhaustion overtaking her. Daniel sat beside her, silent at first. Then he reached out, his hand brushing her hair back from her face, gentle yet deliberate. "You're stronger than you realize," he said. "I don't feel strong," she admitted. "You are," he said simply. "And that is exactly why I brought you here. Because you can handle it." Her chest tightened at the intensity in his gaze. "Why me?" she asked again, her voice barely a whisper. "Because I saw you before anyone else did," he said. "I saw what was hidden, what most people ignore, what makes you dangerous and beautiful." Malia's heart raced. She wanted to run, to push him away, to tell him she wasn't ready for this, for him, for anything. And yet, she stayed, rooted to the spot. In the days that followed, she began to see the edges of Daniel's life that were hidden from most people. Meetings with powerful individuals, cryptic phone calls, mysterious files. She didn't understand everything, but she understood enough. Danger lurked even in the most polished corners of his world. One evening, curiosity overtook her. She found herself standing before a locked drawer in his study, her fingers hovering over the polished wood. Something about it called to her. She knew she shouldn't. And yet, before she could act, Daniel appeared behind her. "Curiosity can be dangerous," he said softly, but without anger. Malia jumped. I didn't." "You wanted to," he said. "And that's fine. But know this. Some things are meant to be discovered at the right time, not the wrong one." She nodded, but her mind was racing. She felt drawn to him in ways she couldn't explain. Fear, desire, frustration, admiration all tangled together, leaving her dizzy and confused. That night, sleep was elusive again. Malia lay in the quiet penthouse, staring at the city lights, tracing patterns on the glass as though they held answers. And for the first time, she admitted to herself something terrifying. She was no longer just afraid of him. She was drawn to him. Days blurred into nights. Malia's life had become a delicate dance of learning, observing, surviving, and slowly resisting or surrendering to the magnetic pull Daniel exerted over her. Their conversations were loaded with tension, each exchange a test of wit, patience, and subtle flirtation. Every moment she spent with him chipped away at the wall she had built around her heart. One night, Daniel asked her to sit with him on the balcony. The city stretched endlessly below, a river of lights and shadows. "Do you ever think about the life you could have had?" he asked quietly. "All the time," she admitted. "And do you regret it?" "No," she whispered. "Because I'm here now." He leaned closer, his presence a tangible force. "Exactly," he said softly. "Because now is where you belong. Not in the past. Not in fear. Here with me." Malia's heart raced. She should have pulled away, should have reminded herself of every rule, every caution, every red flag. But she didn't. She stayed, feeling the pull, the tension, the undeniable connection between them. And in that moment, she realized something terrifying and exhilarating. She was already falling. The penthouse felt different that morning, as if the air itself held a secret. Malia woke early, the pale dawn light spilling across the marble floors, illuminating the sheer magnitude of the life she was now part of. It was beautiful, intoxicating, and suffocating all at once. She dressed carefully, moving with caution through the space that was still foreign to her. Daniel had already left for the office, leaving a simple note on the counter. "Breakfast is in the fridge. Be ready by 6. There's someone I want you to meet." Her pulse quickened. Someone? Her mind spun with possibilities. Business associates, powerful allies, maybe enemies? The thought made her stomach twist. By 6, she had forced herself into a sleek dress, simple yet elegant, and waited. When Daniel returned, he was uncharacteristically casual, a black coat draped over his arm. His gaze lingered on her, the kind that made her stomach flutter and her knees weaken. "You're punctual," he said, a smirk tugging at his lips. "I'm learning," she replied, trying to mask her nerves. "Good," he said, taking her hand lightly, guiding her toward the elevator. "You'll need to be." The elevator ride was silent, but the air between them crackled with unspoken tension. Malia stole glances at him, noting how effortless he was, how every movement seemed measured, controlled. She wanted to ask him about everything: his life, his work, the secrets he kept, but the words died in her throat. When the doors opened, she stepped into a world even more intimidating than the penthouse, the boardroom of Daniel Hayes Enterprises. Glass walls, steel beams, and polished floors reflected the faces of the city's most powerful players. Executives, investors, and even politicians filled the room, their eyes flicking toward the woman at Daniel's side. Malia felt her chest tighten. This world was ruthless, a battlefield disguised as a corporate empire. And she was a newcomer, thrust into the middle of it. Daniel noticed her unease and leaned in slightly. "Focus on me," he whispered. "Not them." She did, trying to anchor herself in his presence. But it was difficult. Everything here was larger than life, from the grandeur of the office to the sharpness of the people who moved through it. "Good morning, Mr. Hayes," a woman's voice said, polite yet cutting. Malia glanced at the speaker, a tall, elegant executive with sharp features and an evaluating gaze. "Good morning," Daniel replied. "This is," the woman asked, glancing at Malia. "My partner," Daniel said simply. Malia blinked. "Partner?" Her heart raced. The word held weight she hadn't expected. The meeting began, a flurry of contracts, charts, and numbers she barely understood. She tried to follow along, asking quiet questions when necessary, but she could feel the judgmental eyes of the room on her. Daniel's presence beside her was a shield, yet it was also a magnifying glass. Everything about her, every misstep, every hesitation, was noticed. By the end of the meeting, Malia was exhausted, mentally and emotionally. Daniel guided her through the hallways, the city sprawling below through the massive glass windows. "You did well," he said quietly. "Better than most." "You're just saying that," she murmured. "I never say what isn't true," he said, voice calm, unwavering. "And you are remarkable, even if you don't realize it yet." Her heart skipped. She wanted to argue, to deny it, to retreat into herself. But she stayed silent, letting the words sink in. That night, the penthouse was quieter than usual. The storm had returned, a gentle drizzle tapping against the glass. Malia wandered to the study, drawn by a curiosity she couldn't resist. Papers, files, and folders lay neatly stacked on the massive desk. One folder in particular caught her eye, a simple black folder sealed. Her fingers hovered over it. "I shouldn't," she thought. "But I want to." Before she could open it, Daniel appeared behind her, silent as a shadow. "Curiosity can be dangerous," he said softly, but without anger. Malia jumped. I wasn't." "You were," he said, voice steady. "And that's fine. But know this, some things are discovered at the right time, not the wrong one." Her fingers dropped to her sides, but her mind raced. She wanted answers, wanted to understand the world she had entered. And most of all, she wanted to know him, the real him, beneath the controlled, untouchable exterior. Daniel studied her for a long moment, his gaze intense. "You're not afraid of me, are you?" "I am," she admitted finally. "But I'm also drawn to you. I don't understand it." "Good," he said simply. "Fear sharpens you. Desire complicates things. Together, they make you alive." Her stomach twisted. She wanted to run, wanted to hide, wanted to fight it. But she stayed, rooted to the spot, feeling the electricity in the air between them. The following weeks brought new challenges. Malia had to navigate the intricacies of Daniel's world, meetings with ruthless competitors, whispers of threats, and the constant undercurrent of danger that seemed to follow him everywhere. She learned quickly, faster than even she thought possible. And Daniel noticed. "You're adapting," he said one evening as they sat in the penthouse, the city lights stretching endlessly below. "I have to," she replied. "I don't want to fail." "You won't," he said. "Not if you trust yourself." She shook her head. "It's not that simple." "No, it's not," he admitted. "But nothing worth doing ever is." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the chaos of the world outside fell away. She felt it, the pull between them, undeniable and growing stronger with each passing day. It terrified her, yet also thrilled her in a way she couldn't explain. Then the first real threat appeared. A mysterious message and signed, left on her personal phone, "Stay away from him, or else." Malia froze, staring at the screen. Her chest tightened. She had suspected that Daniel's world was dangerous, but this made it real. Fear and adrenaline mingled in her veins. She wanted to hide, to run, but she didn't. She couldn't. Daniel noticed her hesitation. "What is it?" he asked, approaching quietly. She handed him the phone. His eyes scanned the message and his jaw tightened. "They know," he said quietly. "And they don't know the half of it." Malia felt her stomach drop. What do we do?" "We adapt," he said simply. "We survive. And we fight if we must." The weight of his words pressed down on her, yet beneath it all, she felt something she hadn't expected, a fierce resolve. She wasn't just here to survive, she was here to protect, to fight alongside him if necessary. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every shadow in the penthouse seemed to hide a threat, every sound was amplified in her mind. And yet, despite the fear, she felt alive in a way she had never felt before. Because she was no longer just surviving, she was part of something bigger, something dangerous, and something intoxicating. Days turned into nights, and Malia found herself walking a fine line between fear and desire. Every glance from Daniel, every touch, every word carried weight. She was constantly aware of him, of his presence, of the magnetic pull that drew her closer despite her better judgment. One night, standing on the balcony together, the city lights reflecting in their eyes, Daniel spoke softly. "Do you ever think about what you've become since you came here?" "All the time," she admitted. "But I don't regret it. Not even for a second." His hand brushed hers. "Good," he said. "Because you're exactly where you're meant to be. With me. Here. Now." Her chest tightened, and for the first time, Malia allowed herself to admit the truth. She was no longer afraid of falling. She had already fallen. The days after the mysterious warning passed slowly, like a shadow crawling across the city. Malia could feel it, the invisible threads of danger that Daniel's world spun around them. Every phone call, every knock at the door, every glance from a stranger could hold consequences she didn't yet understand. Yet amidst the fear, there was something intoxicating. She was no longer just surviving. She was participating, learning, navigating a world that was complex, dangerous, and exhilarating. Daniel noticed her vigilance. He never commented directly, but sometimes, when she returned from errands or meetings, his eyes would linger on her just a moment longer, assessing, measuring, acknowledging. And each time, she felt the electric tension grow between them, a magnetic pull that made her pulse thrum. It was a late afternoon when he called her into the study. The golden light from the setting sun bathed the room in warmth, making every object shimmer like liquid amber. Daniel stood by the massive mahogany desk, his back straight, posture impeccable. His gaze softened when he saw her, yet there was an intensity in his eyes that made her stomach twist. "I need to show you something," he said quietly. Malia stepped closer, curiosity piqued despite the unease curling in her chest. "What is it?" He reached for a locked drawer, pulling out a folder bound in black leather. "This is part of my past," he said, his voice steady, yet carrying an edge of vulnerability she hadn't heard before. Malia's fingers itched to reach for it, to flip open the pages, to understand the enigma that was Daniel Hayes. "Your past?" she asked softly. "Yes," he said. "But it's not just about me. It's about us. About what I expect from you, and what I hope you can handle." Her breath caught. "Why me?" "Because I trust you," he said simply. "And because I need you to understand the stakes. Not just for me, but for us." She took a step closer, her hand brushing his as she reached for the folder. A spark of heat ran through her at the contact, small but undeniable. "This is a lot," she whispered. "I know," he said, eyes locking with hers. "And it will get heavier before it gets lighter. But you need to be ready." Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened the folder. Inside were photographs, documents, and notes, evidence of alliances, enemies, and dangerous dealings that seemed more like a spy novel than a business empire. She blinked rapidly, trying to take it all in. This is dangerous," she breathed. "Yes," he said. "And that danger is part of the reason I brought you here. You are stronger than most, Malia. And I need that strength." Her gaze met his, and for a moment, the world outside the study ceased to exist. She was not just a girl from a struggling past anymore. She was part of something bigger, something perilous and undeniably intimate. That night, the penthouse felt smaller, despite its grandeur. Malia lay awake, thoughts spinning. She could still feel the brush of Daniel's hand, the warmth of his gaze, the way his presence made her pulse race. And she realized something terrifying. She wanted him. It was not fear alone that kept her alert anymore. It was desire. She wanted to feel the warmth of him close, the electricity of his touch, the intensity that neither of them dared to acknowledge fully. By the next evening, the tension had become unbearable. Daniel found her on the balcony, staring out at the city lights as the first hints of night settled in. The sky was painted with deep purples and oranges, reflecting off the buildings like a fractured prism. "You've been quiet," he said softly, joining her without being asked. "I'm thinking," she admitted. "About everything." About us? He asked, voice low, almost teasing. Malia's breath hitched. Maybe. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. Because I can't stop thinking about it either, he whispered. The pull between them was undeniable now, no longer subtle. It was a current that ran through her veins, making her pulse quicken, her body respond before her mind could catch up. She wanted to step back, to resist, but the desire was overwhelming. You know, he murmured, voice husky, we don't have to fight it forever. She swallowed, heart racing. I don't know if I can. You don't have to know yet, he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Just feel it. And for the first time since she had arrived in this world, Malia let herself feel. That night changed everything. They did not speak much, only let the tension and desire guide them. Daniel's touch was electric, commanding yet tender, and Malia felt herself unraveling under it. It was not just physical, it was emotional, psychological, a surrender to someone she barely knew yet trusted implicitly. Afterward, lying together in the quiet darkness, Malia traced the lines of his face with her fingertips, memorizing every detail. This is crazy, she whispered. Yes, he said, voice low and steady. But it feels right. Her chest tightened. She had been afraid of him, afraid of this world, afraid of losing herself. But in that moment, all fear melted into desire, trust, and the unspoken bond forming between them. The following week brought more danger. A shadow from Daniel's past had resurfaced, a rival determined to destabilize his empire and, by extension, the fragile bond between them. Malia discovered it first, noticing subtle signs. A car parked too long near the building, a mysterious envelope left for her at the penthouse, faint messages hidden in emails. She confronted Daniel immediately, tension coiling in her chest. Someone is watching us, she said, holding the envelope. Daniel's expression hardened. I suspected as much, he admitted. And you were right to notice. That means you're learning. Malia frowned. Learning? Daniel, this is dangerous. What if they hurt you or me? They won't, he said, voice firm. Not if we stay ahead of them. And that's why I need you involved fully. Her heart raced. She was terrified, but alongside that fear was a spark of exhilaration. She was no longer just a passenger in his world. She was part of it, and she felt alive in a way she never had before. Late one night, after another day of tension and strategy, Malia found herself alone in the study again. She opened a small drawer, carefully, cautiously, and discovered a collection of personal letters, photographs, and mementos that Daniel had kept private. They revealed a side of him she had never seen, vulnerability, loss, longing, and moments of tenderness hidden beneath his calculated exterior. Her chest tightened, her breath caught, and she realized that she was falling even deeper, not just for the powerful, dangerous man before her, but for the real Daniel, the man beneath the facade. When he returned unexpectedly, she froze, caught in the act. But instead of anger, he merely watched her, a small smile tugging at his lips. Curiosity suits you, he said softly. And courage, too. You see what most people cannot. Malia's heart raced. I want to understand you, she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. And I want you to, he said, stepping closer. Because you matter to me more than you realize. The pull between them, already strong, became irresistible. Malia knew, deep down, that she was no longer just surviving in Daniel's world. She was thriving, driven by desire, trust, and the dangerous, intoxicating power of their connection. And with that, she understood the truth. In Daniel's world, nothing was simple. Nothing was safe. But for the first time in her life, she felt alive in every sense of the word, and she would not turn back. The city outside the penthouse lights burned bright, oblivious to the storm brewing within its walls. Malia stood at the window, heart pounding, staring down at the streets below. For weeks, subtle threats had escalated, mysterious cars following, emails with cryptic warnings, even a break-in at the building that Daniel had handled with icy precision. Tonight, something was different. The tension in the air was palpable, like electricity before a thunderstorm. Malia could feel it in her bones, every nerve alert, every instinct screaming danger. Daniel appeared silently behind her, as he always did, his presence grounding yet electrifying. "Are you ready?" he asked quietly. "For what?" she whispered, though she already knew. "For the storm we've been avoiding," he said, voice steady. "It's here. We face it together." Her chest tightened, fear and anticipation twisting inside her. "Together?" she asked, gripping the windowsill. "Yes," he said, taking her hand. "Always together." The danger revealed itself quickly. A rival from Daniel's past, someone who had long coveted his empire, had decided to strike directly. Their target was Daniel, but Malia knew immediately that she was in the crossfire. Sirens wailed in the distance, the sound echoing against the skyscrapers. Daniel moved with practiced precision, leading Malia through secret passages in the penthouse, corridors she hadn't even known existed. Every step heightened her awareness, her heart racing with fear and excitement. "Stay close," he instructed, voice low but firm. "Do exactly as I say." Malia nodded, adrenaline sharpening her senses. She realized, in that instant, that this world, dangerous, chaotic, and ruthless, was now hers as much as his. She was no longer just a passenger, she was a participant, a partner in the storm. The confrontation was inevitable. In a shadowed alley behind the corporate headquarters, Daniel and Malia faced the rivals' men. Malia's hands shook, but she stayed at his side, refusing to retreat. "You shouldn't have come here," the leader sneered, stepping forward. Daniel's gaze hardened. "You've made a mistake," he said calmly. "Underestimating her." The fight erupted. It was chaotic, swift, and dangerous. Malia moved instinctively, using what Daniel had taught her in weeks of preparation. Her fear was present, but it didn't dominate, her focus did. And beside her, Daniel was a force of controlled fury, protecting her and neutralizing the threat with terrifying efficiency. In the chaos, Malia realized something profound. She trusted him, not blindly, but completely. She knew he would never let harm come to her if she followed him. And she would follow him anywhere. After the confrontation, bloodied but victorious, Daniel pulled Malia close. They were safe, for now, the city humming around them, oblivious to the danger they had just faced. "You were incredible," he said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You have strength I underestimated." Malia's chest heaved, adrenaline still coursing through her. "I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted, voice trembling. "No," he said firmly. "You did it. You faced it. And you survived. And that makes you extraordinary." Her eyes filled with tears not from fear, but from relief, pride, and the intensity of emotion that had built over weeks. She realized she had not only survived this world, she had thrived in it, alongside the man who had become more than just an enigma. He was her anchor, her challenge, and the center of her heart. That night, back in the penthouse, the storm outside mirrored the one inside. Rain lashed against the windows, and the city lights shimmered like fire through the water. Malia sat beside Daniel, their hands intertwined, hearts still racing from the night's events. "I don't know what the future holds," she whispered. "You don't have to," he replied, voice steady. "All that matters is now. And right now, we are together." Her heart swelled at the intensity in his eyes. "I trust you," she admitted softly. "Completely." "And I trust you," he said, drawing her close. "More than anyone I've ever known." The intimacy between them was undeniable. There was no hesitation, no walls, only the raw connection that had grown from fear, desire, respect, and shared struggle. Malia felt herself surrendering fully, letting go of past doubts, fears, and insecurities. She had found her place, not just in this dangerous world, but with him. Weeks turned into months. The threats faded, the danger lessened, but Malia knew they would always exist in some form. And yet, she no longer felt powerless. She had learned, adapted, and grown, her instincts sharpened and her courage proven. Daniel and Malia became a team in every sense. Their bond was more than romance. It was partnership, trust, and mutual respect forged in fire. And in their moments of quiet, they discovered joy, laughter, and a love that was unyielding in its intensity. One evening, Daniel took her to the balcony, the city stretching below like a glittering ocean. He turned to her, eyes filled with something she had never seen before, vulnerability and unwavering certainty. "Malia," he said softly, "you've changed my world. You've made me see things I didn't know I could feel. And I want the rest of my life with you." Tears sprang to her eyes, a mixture of disbelief, happiness, and overwhelming emotion. "You mean it," she whispered. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life," he said, cupping her face gently. "You are my heart, my anchor, and my future." Malia's chest swelled with love. "I love you," she said, voice trembling but full of conviction. "And I love you," he replied, pressing his forehead to hers. More than words could ever express. The city below was oblivious to the intensity of the moment, but Malia and Daniel didn't care. They had found each other in a world of chaos, danger, and desire. And they knew, whatever storms might come, they would face them together. The months that followed were not without challenges, but Malia had become unrecognizable from the girl who had first arrived at the penthouse. She was confident, capable, and unafraid of the shadows that lurked around them. And Daniel, once untouchable and distant, had revealed a vulnerability and depth that only she had been allowed to see. Together, they navigated the treacherous waters of business, threats, and personal demons. But the most profound truth remained. In each other, they had found not just love, but partnership, trust, and an unbreakable bond. As they stood together on the balcony one last night in the story, watching the city lights dance and the stars shimmer above, Malia realized that this world, dangerous, complicated, and thrilling, was exactly where she belonged. And with Daniel by her side, she knew she could face anything. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.